What's up, everyone? Joe here. Glad to see everyone. Well, I can't see you, but it's good to know you're here. Okay. So, hey, a little while back, we did a video kind of off the cuff, and it was drum-centric, and it was like top 5, top 10 drum plugins that I use. And it went over really, really well, and we had a lot of comments from more drum-heavy things. And we had another video a little while ago that went over really well that was vocal reverbs. And we also were receiving comments about more videos with effects because some people struggle with that. So we thought, well, let's just do drum effects. It seems like it makes complete sense. What we'll do is I've got a couple songs pulled up here where I have the drum, the multitracks, and just quickly threw them in with just some SSL channel strips to get them in the ballpark. And I think I have all the reverbs muted. So right now you'll hear a kind of just a dry kick, snare, overhead, tom-tom, thing. And we can go around from section to section because I also brought in things like this. That just sounds very different, but it's a very dry, very flat drum sound. Okay, so if we don't have drum rooms, or even if we do have drum rooms and it's a small room, it's not recorded very well, or we just need some kind of big digital ambient sound, which we very often do. It's the 80s reverbs are back, in a lot of forms of music. So how do I create an environment or some space for the drums? And I just thought it'd be fun to kind of break that down. So number one, if we do not have drum room captures, maybe you record your own drums and you're in a small room or something like that. One of my favorite things is to create my own fake room. And the way I do that is I bring up there's a couple great plugins to do that kind of thing. And so instead of going with like a digital reverb, like a Lexicon 480 or a Bricasti or something, I actually try to take plugins like we see on the screen here. The T-Rack Sunset Sound is a great one. And another one that I really enjoy is Ocean Way Studios from Universal Audio. There are others out there. The goal of this video is not to sell plugins. It's to just make you think about concepts. Even if you don't have these reverbs, you're going to have other reverbs in your chamber of tools that will get the job done. So it's really just a way of thinking. This plugin right here, for example, is an actual impulse response type of room capture from this studio. So it's not a digital reverb per se. And let me just show you real quick that I have 4 drum returns. That's just part of my template. I have a dry drum master. I have a parallel compression. I have parallel distortion, which I won't use for the purpose of this demo, but I wanted you to see that it was here. And then a fake room. And I treat it very much the way that I treat a reverb. It's fed off of aux sends. And the reason is, instead of taking and just having this be the input drums bus to where the kick, snare, overheads, everything get equal power room. Doing it on aux sends like this, I can control what the blend sounds like. So, for example, right now, here's our overall drum blend. Okay, so what I can do is tailor what I'm sending to the drumizer, we'll call it. So let's turn all the effects off, and I want you to hear the dry level. So there's a little kick, a lot of snare, a lot of toms, a little overhead. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll run it through Sunset Sound, and for some reason, the Sunset Sound plugin, I'm going to let you see it on the screen here. It's a little heavy on one side on my system, so I have the trim plugin after it just to kind of level out and make the snare centered up. I'm not sure why that is, but check it out. Okay, and now let me show you the Ocean Way. Here it is right here. Okay, nothing special on their own, but what do we do as mixers to drum sounds or drum room sounds? We stick it into an SSL channel strip or something similar and compress it on fast attack settings. So watch this. So now we'll take our Sunset Sound room and we'll hit this SSL, and I've probably already got it dialed in. Ready? Okay, that's the way we treat drum rooms in a mix, correct? So now watch, I'll unmute the dry drums and I'll bring this into taste, and it creates just a little bit of stereo realism and depth of a real room surrounding the drums in the absence of a real room. Check it out. In some songs, that's all the reverb we need, right? I'm gonna also do this to the Ocean Way so you can hear it and make your, just in case if you are interested in demoing any of these plugins, you'll be able to hear it. So here's the Ocean Way into the channel strip, and let's make sure that we're getting enough compression on that. Yeah, so we'll do the same thing. Take it dry and bring up some of the room through the Ocean Way sound with SSL fast attack compression and give it a listen. With and without. It just sounds more real, right? I mean, you just hear just a little bit of air moving around the room. So that's one of my favorite tricks. And I primarily use that when I either have bad drum rooms that I'm given where there is no room sound. Basically, it's just like another set of close mics, or everything is really out of balance, or I don't get rooms at all. That is one of my number one tools. Okay. So now let's dive into actual reverbs here. And what I do is I bring in a template that's just full of things that I've discovered over the years. And I change them out routinely. So this is my current template. You may come into the room in 30 days and 6 of these are gone and 6 new ones are in their place. But what I do is I make them inactive and only have one of them up, like a good starting spot for that type of a sound. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to make everything active so I can quickly go back and forth on all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unbypass on my short rooms. I like short rooms, a wooden studio room kind of thing. They just work in a lot of songs. And in fact, like this one, this up-tempo thing, you don't have room for the big tails. So you just need some sizzle and some snap and some air moving around the kit. And this is one that I found real recently. And what I do is I go from high frequency and kind of ruckus reverbs down to a longer, smoother, warmer tail. And you'll hear this in action. So let me unmute this. And I've got quite a bit going to the reverb send. So it's probably too much reverb, but you need to hear it. You need to hear it really good and strong. Dry. Sometimes a sound like that there is some decay. It's not like a gated reverb kind of thing, but it stays pretty prominent for just a short amount of time and then quickly ramps down and is out of the way. But it has a lot of diffusion. It's nice, and it's got some nice high end in the upper mids that lets it really be known that you have reverb. Okay, and now I have an alternate to that that's going to be not quite as bright, but nonetheless very ruckus and bright. And it's the Quantx from Relab. Check this out. With and without. Okay, now following that theme, I go down the line, and this is one I've used for years. I still have it in my template just because literally I've probably been using it for 15 and 20 years, and it just makes me feel good to still have it there. It's the Woodroom patch in Reverb 1 from Avid. So if you're not using Pro Tools, you won't have that one, but nonetheless, I want you to hear it. And this one, I know the output is a little, it's not quite as hot as some of the others, so I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. And you will see what they were trying to capture, the vibe they were trying to capture, because the next one I'm going to play you is HD Cart from Liquid Sonics. And this is the Studio A setting, which is a lexicon style patch. Check this out. more low frequency, more low end, but nonetheless short. Now I'm going to go down to my next darkest, smoothest short room. Okay, so check this out. This is the Lexicon 480. It's the Music Club patch. It's been a prominent staple in mixers tools for years. So check this one out. Not as crispy in the top end. It's kind of low, mid, lows, and this has the smoothest decay of all of them. Check out the decay. Now compare that to where we started. Massively different, but all short. So the way I think, why am I taking time to show you this? The way I think of it, when I'm sitting down to mix a song, I kind of envision the room that the band is in, right? So you hear the song, and either it's an aggressive rock song, and you're like, hey, this could be in a club with 300 people, or this is a stadium tour, or this is a small jazz club. Actually sounds like it's very in studio. This sounds like it should be trying to simulate Phil Collins in the 80s. So you get this mental picture. So I want to have all these tools just ready to go to fit whatever I'm hearing and seeing in my mind, because these actually fit an image that's in my head of the band playing. So I will play the drums, play the track, and I'll generally know short and bright. Okay, short and mid. Okay, short, but I need the smooth tail with some nice warm low mids. And so I'll just simply activate whichever one I need to match that song. And in each of these returns here that we're going to talk about, you will see it's followed up by an SSL channel strip. Just in the way that when we were working on consoles, we would return our reverb to a channel on our console, we could quickly dial in some EQ or compression. And I still love doing that. So for example, if I have this patch pulled up, from the long smooth one, right? That's the one I've decided is right for this song. But as I'm mixing, I'm like, I need just a little more snap. Maybe instead of switching patches, all I need to do is do something like this. And now I have just a little more high mid attack of the snare drum, zinging around the room. So I just like having that tool there, whether I'm using it or not. And compression on reverb is another fun one. Okay, so that's sound number one, column number one, we'll call it. Okay, now sometimes our songs that we're working on are very different. And they're more like something like this. Well, let me mute the reverb. I don't hear short room on that, right? Maybe I'm going to use a little bit of it because what we'll get to last is blending, because that's what I do. I'm a blender. I have a set of tools here specifically for the big ballad, and again, sometimes we combine those with the shorter rooms. But let's start going through the tools that I use just so you can get an idea of the sounds. Again, I'm not trying to push a plug-in on you. You can dive through the reverbs you already own and find stuff to kind of do this and try to visualize the room. So let's listen to this and see if we can get something that's a little more moody, a little more stadium rock. Okay, so this is the Quantx from Relab with some different settings and longer decay time. So what I've done here is I've got it's almost 2 seconds, but it's real easy to change if that's the sound that I want to do. But I've kind of rolled back some high end and turned up some low end just a little bit. And see, I'll go a real extreme. That's too much rolling around on the floor toms. But remember, we've got this guy right here. So if we can do something real exaggerated on the reverb itself and then follow this high pass filter, let's do that. That's a pretty cool sound. Okay, so let me take that back down to about there. Now let's listen to the next offering, and it's the great patch from the 80s, the AMS RMX 16 reverb. just as popular now as I think it ever was. We're getting more and more of the big snare drum from the 80s type of vibe in lots of genres. And this guy kind of defined that genre. Play it dry and then with the reverb. And that's a decay time of 1.7. And you can see I'm exaggerating the low end a little bit over the natural setting and cutting out some of the top end. But, again, you can just dial in the preset the way you hear it and then quickly just zing it up the way you need it to be zinged. So this is something that this particular patch blends really well with other shorter mid-sized rooms, but you get that little bit of a tail, okay? So now, what is the third guy in this? It's Seventh Heaven. So it's the Bricasti Marble Room, about 1.8 seconds, and it looks like I have the low-cut filter engaged, right? It just kind of built into my preset. Just very, very smooth. So now, before we get to the last column, let's do this. Let's go up to a section where, yeah, let's go there. And now let's take this one. This is kind of neutral. It's not really overly bright. It's not that long. And it's kind of in the middle on the warmth scale, we'll call it. So let's get a little of that guy in there. So let's go up to about 1 second on that because of just based on the tempo. A little over a second sounds perfect. So now we get a little of that immediate, the tail starts quick kind of thing. Now let's blend that with something like the RMX 16. Let's bring that up to taste. Actually, let's try the Quantx. That's a little too long, so let's turn that down to about right. Yeah, well, it's a little hard to get my hand on it. Okay, now again, just the shorter sound. Just the longer sound. We get that blossom, that wide kind of thing. Now let's blend the two so we get our immediate impact where there's reverb happening quickly, followed by that tail that blooms out in the sides. So blending reverbs is a big deal for me. A lot of times I use two. Now, my last row of reverbs over here is stuff I've come across that is just wacky in one way or another. And I just love, it's like, this is my bank of stuff when it's like, I need this guy to be weird and crazy kind of stuff. So let's listen to some of this stuff. This is Flamingo Verb. And I remember this patch. Yeah, I've only used it once since I got this because this is not that old of a reverb. But I remember it was cool enough for that song that I thought I'm going to save that guy. So let's check it out. I need the up tempo song for this one. Just a really quick slap off of sidewalls. So I hope you hear that. It's kind of, I got the width enhanced a little bit. So it's like the snare drum is right here, but there's some slap happening from the sides, ultra quick, like clubby kind of. It's just fun, just unique. What do I have next? I have the RMX 16. Oh, okay. This is my Phil Collins. This is another fun blender, a non-Lin reverb. And if you have Pro Tools, the non-Lin patch and even the deverb is really good. Non-Lin is one of those things that even cheap, plugins that are a little grainy sound really good in non-Lin because it's not going to be a lush long tail that decays perfectly. It's not supposed to be. So check this out. Can you feel that coming in the air tonight? But that's what a great patch to have. So again, non-len is going to typically be what it's called, and a lot of different brands of reverbs and stuff will have non-len patches built in. But check this out. So what we can do, let's blend that with the short room to taste. So we're going to have our short room, and then I'll bring up the non-len with it. Okay, so we get our warmth with a little sustain, about 1 second. Now let's bring up the non-len. Neither one of those can do that. It takes both of them to make that blend. And that's kind of the fun thing about having multiple reverb returns and just dialing in exactly what your brain wants to hear. Okay, so now let's mute the short room. Now let's go back over here to my bag of tricks and see what I have. I have the Lexicon 480. Oh, this is my brick wall patch. Really short, 240 milliseconds. Here we go. So it's very non-len in a way, but with a little bit of a, it's just different. Let me play them back to back so you can hear. So this is like the standard 80s non-len. And here is the brick wall slap thing. Now, it's not as dense as the RMX. And what I like doing with this is going to the early reflections and kind of creating a little lopsided field right here. See that? Okay, so blend that in with the little short room. Check it out. Now, let's take one of the ruckus rooms like this guy right here. The Quantx. So it's kind of ruckus. And let's take the 480 brick wall with a little of that weird, bouncing off walls at different times and blend that up to taste. See, it adds just a little bit of motion and movement to it. Isn't that cool? I love this stuff. We have the best job on the planet, you know it? So that is one of my favorites. Okay, now last but not least is delay. Every once in a while, you have a song, a dirty digital or tape delay sounds good with, backbeat, pa-ka, da-da kind of thing. And one really cool tool for that, for me recently, has been the Yak delay from Flamingo because of these just easy to grab, really quick filters, low pass and high pass. So check this out with and without. And you can, if you want more repeats, ka, 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 you can. But a lot of times I turn my time off and I dial it in by hand. That's not necessarily on a 16th or an 8th. It's kind of, in the cracks. And that's what sounds great to me. It's a lot of fun, and sometimes it's very right. Now, so right now I have it pretty dark. So let's bring in a little high end back into it. Okay, now here, why do I have an extra reverb send on this one for the delay? So sometimes what I'll do, just one repeat, and I'll bring that up, and then I will send it to my long delay. Check this out. And let me do this with the reverb having none of the long reverb on it. So now the long reverb will only be on the delay. Let's make it a little darker. So it really depends on the song, but you can have some fun with delay on drums occasionally. Now, last but not least, I have why I have my drum and bass bus up is because sometimes I treat the whole group. You'll see just a stuff that I do every day, a little SSL saturation. Then I can either use true iron instead for, like harmonic content from a transformer. I have a shadow hills, which I can switch in and out with other things, a little EQ, plug-in alliance, a little limiting at the end. But in the middle here, I have the MXR Flanger. So every once in a while you get a song, and generally it's in either a very pop thing or a heavy rock thing where we kind of, that old Led Zeppelin influence. And I think, before we went on camera on this song, what I do is I dial in something I like, and then I automate the mix knob, not the bypass knob, because it makes little pops and cracks when it goes in and out. But if I take the mix knob and I run it at 0 to where it's dry and only turn it on when I need it, check this out. Let's just a regular drum fill, unbypassed. Check it out. You've all heard that sound a million times. And when it is right, it is the coolest thing ever. So from time to time, I have a rock client and they send me a rough of their work and it's really good. And you're like, okay, how can I take it to the next level? You find a few things you can do better, but you do something creative like that on some kind of a break somewhere, and all of a sudden they think you're a genius and you get the job. So check it out one more time. So basically that's a flanger, and it's a lot of fun on drums when it's right. Okay, so that's kind of a look at how I, use a bunch of different types of sounds, blend sounds, and hopefully you capture what I'm saying about the mental image, because they match. All of these are intended to match the mood and the mental picture that I have of the band. And this is a way I kind of create the virtual room that the listener is going to hopefully enjoy. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and happy mixing.